Okay, Tara, you ready to start again?
Yeah.
Because I'm Mr. Krabby Pants.
All right, you said it.
Well, how's your morning been going so far?
It's been going great,
Good.
actually.
No, we started and this is the second time we've started the podcast because I had a health issue a year ago and I don't want to talk about it all the time. And so I'm not going to talk about it. I just brought it up, but I'm not going to talk about it. It's on a previous podcast in detail, right? I mean, in my opinion, if we just hit high points, little pieces of it, it gets confusing. And so I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I felt another thing where I had a problem. And so you asked about me being on a 3-day fast, and it wasn't a big deal because 3-day fasts are nothing compared to like 7-day fasts or, bigger things like that. So there was like 2 times during the fast that I was even hungry. I did a water fast, a 3-day water fast. And, and then on the second day I took some smooth move tea because you want to keep things moving in your body. And yeah, nothing crazy happen. So I know I'm talking about it now, but but I got to clear your mind. I got to clear my mind. You kind of got some 80s hair going on today. Look at those bangs. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, want some more of it?
Like it, love it. Yeah, if you pulled this one down, you could be Supergirl.
Is that, no, it won't.
No, it won't. It's bringing back.
Yep. Supergirl, is that?
Well, Superman has the little curl, so.
Oh, okay.
You could be Superwoman, I should say.
But there is a Superwoman.
Supergirl. Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I'll go with Superwoman. Yeah, I could do that.
Superwoman.
Yeah, we should probably get you something to put that on.
So it doesn't clink?
Yeah.
Clinkety clank?
There you go.
Our cameraman's on top
Because
of it. Look at
I listen to podcasts and I hear audio stuff and I'm like, someone should fix that.
Well, yeah, we are using the computer.
Ours is not perfect, but
we're using the computer that's on the desk, so if I start tapping, you're really gonna...
I listened to pet peeve moment. I listened to a podcast the other day, and there is a reason. Even some of them were wearing like the earbuds so that they could hear the other
everything
sound
really well. Yeah.
Well, only 2 of them were, but they were the hosts.
Yeah.
So they should have fixed, because
the third person was banging and clanging.
Someone was talking like this. The bass was really accentuated, and the other person had a PC connection. I can call it.
Was that the person who were talking like this? Was that a red pill dude, Tara? Was that an internet boy?
The other guy was like on a total bad PC hookup. Yes, I'm an Apple girl, and so the sound was not robust or just bad products.
Real tinny.
And then another woman was loud. It's just a talkative person, and then the other person was soft and then would adjust her thing. Okay.
So there's no modulation of all the equipment.
Yes, correct. I mean, not to say that all my productions have been perfect, but
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, when you use this podcast is not sponsored by Apple, but we're filming. If this is kind of cool to look. Like I said, our cameraman. We don't have a cameraman, but watch my face. You see how the camera's trying to keep up with us? That's the iPhone doing that in its native environment. It's just natural. They obviously the software is there, but they have the facial recognition and it follows you, and then the audio. However our audio sounds, we're not going to do anything to it because it's just being recorded on a MacBook Pro that is sitting about 2 feet away from each of us on the desk, on the table. And that's it. And it sounds great. I listen to our podcasts and I like to watch you. I like to watch you watch me. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Okay.
Let me tell you something.
Tell me something.
Let me tell you something. You know what's really good? Oh, look, I'm doing the power symbol that all the red pill guys do.
Oh, really?
I do it naturally. I've done it my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm like, Evidently, I was creating power for myself because when I walk, I talk, and I look like this.
Inner Chico.
Yeah, it's Ninja Mandela's. So what was I gonna say?
I don't know.
I lost it.
Yeah, you distracted yourself.
Shinkdamakdadoyo.
Well, I have something until you remember. So we've heard a number of times, I mean, I've heard the phrase ride or die before, but I've been hearing it a lot
Ride or die.
on the John Deloney podcast. And I'm like,
That's a colloquialism he says from the 90s. Yeah,
hang on, I looked it up.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I know what it means, like
Yeah.
as a reference, but a lot of times I'm like, well, what does that really mean? Where does it come from? Because sometimes.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
The Hell's Angels, you ride or you die. You're in the gang, you ride or you die.
You're partially correct.
Yeah, if you don't come with us, we're going to kill you.
Per Wikipedia. Now, I read a couple of articles, but referring to Wikipedia it has kind of the more overview. A ride or die chick. Now, this is referring to a chick. That's the
A female.
references that came up.
Yeah.
Not a cute baby chick. Is a neologism originating from biker culture.
Yeah.
Referring to a woman who is willing to support her partner and their risky lifestyle, despite how this might endanger or harm her. She even may take an active role as an accomplice. Now, the origin, however, there are a couple of.
It's used correctly in rap. Rap uses it, so rap uses it correctly.
Yep.
The biker culture uses it correctly.
But hang on.
And I said it probably came from motocross.
Well, there is that. It didn't surprise me that it came from biker culture,
Yeah.
but the term ride or die, again, this is according to Wikipedia,
Yeah.
which they seem to have a good conglomeration of the different ones I was reading.
Yeah, not always correct, but yeah.
The term ride or die originates from the 1950s biker slang, meaning that if a biker couldn't ride, they'd rather die. This meaning has changed over the years and now refers to a woman who embraces the us against the world or Bonnie and Clyde dynamic with her partner. In theory, she accepts a life being their partner in crime, willing to do anything, even if doing so results in danger towards her. My Siri came on for some reason. So then it went into the hip hop culture. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading. The ride or die chick trope is used by all in hip hop music, with men stating their desire for a ride or die chick, and women identifying themselves as willing to ride and die. So I won't keep going and just keep on reading. You can look it up if you want to.
Keep on keeping on, Tara.
If you want to read more, but it lists a bunch of songs, and so it's one of those Urban Dictionary kind of terms, right? It's like it started in something with something else, and then because I knew what Dr. John Deloney is saying. He's not obviously condoning, riding with your man into the sunset and doing illegal things. I'm pretty sure, but I think it has another
it sounds cool,
Yeah.
and it's colloquialisms in certain different, in certain parts of the country it probably is used more, and in certain circles it's probably used more. And we don't know what he does for a hobby. He might ride Harleys.
So, correct. And then as I read some other articles, there was more reference towards the Black culture and this connotation in influencing, or not just this connotation, this trope, influencing people. And so I think that's where it's really important. That's why I like looking up definitions, because you could be saying something like ride or die, and what it really means is the biker culture where I want to ride. If I can't ride my motorcycle, I'd rather die.
Yeah.
Or B, I'm with you no matter what, even if we're doing something illegal, immoral, and so forth.
Or we're broke, or we're rich, or we're whatever. Yeah. Ride or die.
Yeah. So I think
it's a simple phrase. It's for guys mostly.
Yeah. Well, tell me what you get
All the
from
cool
it.
phrases have been made by guys.
Of course. So tell me more, since you are part of that culture that I don't know anything about. Enlighten me, please.
Well, I've never been a Harley rider.
Well, it didn't say Harley. It said just biker culture.
Biker culture.
Slang.
Yeah. I've never been a biker culture person.
Just a biker,
Not a biker, motorcyclist.
motorcyclist.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
What's the difference? Biker culture is groups, right? It's basically the Harley culture. It's groups of people getting together, going on rides, living a certain lifestyle. It's on their bikes all the time, that type of stuff. Yeah, I love to ride. I don't have a motorcycle right now, but I'd love to ride. But you know me, I'd go out and ride by myself most of the time. I don't call up buddies and say, "Hey, do you want to go ride?" That's not that's not what I do. I go find the gnarliest roads in my area and go as fast as I can and have the fun that I can. And yeah.
Yeah, what have been some of your favorite roads to be on? Memorable?
Well, just roads that have, hills and curves and, they're scenic.
Well, we did Pikes Peak.
Hopefully no dangerous roads. I mean, usually what I'll do is I'll ride up one way, I'll scout, and then I'll ride back and go fast.
Well, we live in Minnesota where we're not too far from the Mississippi and Minnesota river
Yeah,
valleys.
the river valleys are awesome.
They're amazing.
And double letter roads in Wisconsin are awesome. Yeah. A lot of,
beautiful area.
windy roads out here, if you go in, 20 miles from here real easily. Because of the hills and stuff. As soon as you get hills, you get windy roads because they don't usually build the roads over the hills. They build them between the hills.
Yeah.
So
you are very particular about language as well, and words in particular, maybe not language, but words and phrases. Yeah. And so what occurred to me with this ride or die terminology is especially the way that, and I'm not harping on Dr. John Deloney. I mean, you gotta, Anyways.
Well, I will harp on him. He's inappropriate with his call outs a lot of times. He's got people calling his show that are incredibly depressed in very huge problems. And they'll say, "Hi, Dr. John, how you doing?" He's like, "Partying, rocking, just cranking it up." And then he's like, "How are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm okay."
Yeah.
And the other day I heard him, he goes partying, and then he goes, "Well, not really." I don't know if somebody off camera went, like that, like this person is a suicidal person, please.
Remember, this is call
settle
number 2.
It down a little bit. Yeah. The enthusiasm is a little bit over the top sometimes, and I do what you want. I mean, but for me, that's my particularity on how people. What I personally would do is I would assess the person, and then I would try and help lift them up a little bit and find out what they're talking about, and then be like, well, here's the bright side, and here's your problem, here's what you got to deal with, and you already know what that is. But I'm surprised at how many of these people that call in don't have any idea what to do, or they're continuing the problem themselves. They're literally a major portion of the problem, and they're continuing the problem moving forward. And then they're making excuses for why the other person is doing it and what they did wrong, and I thought of that, but then, that was 6 months ago, and now I don't know if I can say anything about it. And it's like, what? Your wife was cheating on you. She talked you into having an open relationship. Immediately after that, she started dating another guy. Not the guy she was cheating on, but the other guy. And then you found out she was still going out with the previous guy and that guy and another guy. And it's like, and the husband is all apologetic. Yeah, I was telling her that, I'm probably not fulfilling her needs and this and that. And it's like, now you're married to a whore. It's like, come on, it's slut central at your house. It's like,
okay, we have like 5 topics we can go on.
Well, we've got kids. Yeah, dude, it's time to get some stuff recorded, get it on video, go to court, take your kids, and have supervised visitations with this woman that's sleeping with your whole town. It's like, holy crap.
Okay, there's so many things I could go off on here. Okay, so I think for one, they're doing a show, and they need a character, a personality. I mean, it is kind of amazing. I mean, Dr. Phil would be the comparison. How has he been?
The more salacious it is, the more you listen.
Right.
You're like, what? For me, I'm like, I can't believe the next thing I just heard. It's not like,
So the story itself is the shock
oh
factor. It
man,
doesn't have to be the
yeah,
host, you're saying. But
no,
I can see how it does, and they're, I personally am not harping on them. I think they're doing a service, let's
yes,
say.
I agree, I
And
agree.
I like observing actually the production, what they
Just
do is
because the
production.
Humane Society has rescued 10,000 dogs doesn't mean we can't be critical of what they're doing.
True, yes. So, they have their clip cards and thumbnails, and Dr. Deloney's like, all of these reactions.
I usually listen, I don't usually watch, so I don't see all his reactions.
No, it's just the thumbnails is what
Oh,
I'm
okay,
saying.
okay.
And so,
Clickbait.
yeah, it's clickbait
Thumbnails are clickbait.
in that sense. So that's one, I think, and they've, I don't know how many counselors actually have personality. So he obviously can, I mean, he's a John. I don't mean a John in that way, but Johns tend to have
There's only
some
one kind of John. It's a John.
It's a John.
It's a John.
It's like if everybody has an Uncle John somewhere, and that Uncle John is, yep, is that type of person. So, and we need people of all sorts.
Especially if his name is spelled Jon.
Yeah, got the H beat out of him. So, going back to ride or die, I do think it's important to use the right words or right terminology. So I thought it'd be interesting if we actually broke it down. So you have the original term, I'm not going to ride. If I can't ride, I would rather die, blah, 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 blah. And another article that I read was on a website about relationships and trying to teach, it seems like the younger generation, let's say Gen Z, and that ride or die is not necessarily a healthy way of being, and that if you're doing illegal things to feel loved, or if a number of these, I could pull up the article, they had some good points to it, but I think what's missing is sometimes we have these phrases and they're actually helpful. They help to paint a picture. Like we have old phrases like jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire, or the pot calling the tea kettle black. A number of these
Pig
phrases.
in a poke. Hog on ice.
Yes. And when you learn what they mean, it's like, oh, that makes sense. They're more of a metaphor, right? And they can speak even to people in other languages and other cultures. It makes sense. But these kinds of tropes, well, first of all, when they get changed, I know that you're a stickler about words and phrases getting changed, although it happens naturally in language.
Yeah.
It's important to know where they come from.
Well, you listen to a lot of people mess them up. They're like, well, if you can't stand the heat, you better get in the freezer. It's like, what is going on?
Right.
Right. A hot dog on a stick is worth two in your hand. What?
Right.
A bird in hand is worth two in the bush. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's break it down. You caught the bird. Let's say you're out hunting and you're hunting mourning doves, right? Well, there's two birds in the bush. You're hunting. You got one in your hand. It's better to have one in your hand than to hunt the two in the bush because they may get away. So yeah, a bird in hand is better than two in the bush, or killing two birds with one stone.
The pot calling a tea kettle black, I had to have someone explain this to me years ago, is they're both black. So it's like you're telling someone, chastising someone about something
Apples
that you
to apples.
yourself do.
Yeah.
It's
Apples to apples, a horse apiece.
Well, horse apiece is apparently very local, very Minnesota.
But it's the same thing. It's the same, right? The pot calling the tea kettle black, same difference. Apples to apples, same difference. A horse apiece, same difference.
Pot calling a tea kettle black is slightly different in that it implies that a person is, I'm telling you to do something or be a certain way.
From a position, you're accusing me of something, but you've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the mote, and get rid of the mote in your own eye, then it's mote, right? Yeah.
The sty in your eye.
No, it's mote.
The stick in your eye. Remove the stick from your eye before you.
I thought it was
before you
mote.
mote a pote.
I'm gonna have to look that one up for sure. I should
Ain't a
prepare
boat.
for that one. So I think what's happening though is since that this term has come to mean also someone who's with you no matter what. And how Dr. Deloney is using it is it doesn't seem to be implying whether it's legal or not. But I think I think there's an underlying component where we've lost in our culture a sense of morality.
The meaning of
right?
language.
It goes beyond
It's
that.
happening.
It goes beyond that, that words are just kind of floating around in the air, and they don't have like some kind of ground.
Tangible attachment to what they mean. Yeah.
Yes, but I think what would be better, rather than, and again, I'm not harping on Dr. Deloney, but I think people in general, we need to be more discerning with our language, is because he's like, you want your ride or die, right? You thought she was your ride or die, and it's like, no. I thought, I mean, if you cheated on me, it would be like, I thought he was with me forever. I thought it was truly till death do us part. And I think people have gone away from that kind of language, thinking it's strictly religious. However, I've come to appreciate over the last couple of years tradition and ceremony more than ever, and recognizing that even a marriage, a wedding, is, whether it's in a church or not, you are up in front of family and friends, you are devoting yourselves to each other, and you're doing it in front of people that can help keep you accountable.
Yeah, and you're professing it out loud instead of me and you back behind the barn going, "Yeah, I love you, baby."
Right. And you're like, "Oh my God, finally, she said it."
Oh, that was me saying, "I love you."
It is good.
Yeah, you're funny. But you're saying it in front of I'm saying it in front of your dad and mom. I'm saying it in front of your uncle. I'm saying it in front of your grandma. You're saying it in front of my parents, and
in front of my Uncle John.
And the community holds you together. Yeah, the community holds you together. The community knows then. Then back in the day when you would go out into the community, they'd be like, "Oh, you're Tara. You married John Bachlan. He's out on the farm next to the lake," or whatever, and then people would know who you were married to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I think has been lost is, in this culture, they're not even talking about it, level of commitment.
The wedding is not about showing wealth. It's turned into that, people spending tons of money.
So ride or die has become the wedding ring, is the commitment. You are, hang on, bear with me for a moment. Because in this other article that I was reading, it was like, it's okay to break up, you don't feel bad about breaking up. And it's like, well, wait a minute, let's back up a step.
A marriage or a relationship?
Relationship. And I think that's where there's so much gray area, huge gray area of what are the levels of commitment. Instead of it was, we're courting, we're dating, we're engaged, we're married. Right? There were specific levels, and you would do or not do certain things at different levels. And I think, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, thinking, oh, that's old hooey.
The phrase is, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah.
You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You think that maybe these old traditions are just archaic, but I can see, in my life experience, how they are really wise, and they really help. A person needs to be raised in a way from a baby to a young adult, and that young adult, and helping them learn how to date, learn how to have a relationship with someone. I think that is the courting, the dating, engagement process.
Well, how important it is that civility is passed on from generation to generation is illuminated in the Gulag Archipelago, where Jordan Peterson has brought this to light in past years here with Solzhenitsyn, who wrote it, who was in the gulags, and during that time when the farmers were called the kulaks, and the Soviets were you were penalized if you had food, because that meant you were rich. And it got so bad that the government had to put out pamphlets saying it's not okay to eat your children. And that outside of the millions, tens of millions, 100 million people that were killed, that shocked me more than anything. I know governments are inherently evil. The governments are inherently about control. And once they control enough, they're about being self-serving. And that's why our founders put in place the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, everything, right? That's why our system was set up the way it is, so that we could control the government instead of the government controlling us. And that one thing, because you wouldn't think that anybody would think, I'm going to eat this eating a human baby, period. Not to mention your own child, not to mention it got bad enough to the point where enough people were doing it that the government put out flyers. That means that the entire social fabric, structure, and soul of the humanity of that country was ripped away. And people don't understand. You've got people nowadays, like you're saying, you're touching this top level surface of, we got to be careful how we change our speech. We got to be careful about how we say things. We can't just say it, right? We can't just, any phrase that is a colloquial phrase made up in a community, you can't just pick up that phrase and just start using it just because you don't know why that phrase was created. You don't know what the meaning until you know the meaning, right? Because all of a sudden people start tearing away at the fabric of language and the fabric of civil society, and then you have people eating their own children. I mean, that's where it goes,
you're
right?
going to the nth degree.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if we're not striving for heaven, we're walking to hell, right? And so I think we need to continue, everybody needs to, I don't care if anybody believes in religion or God or heaven or whatever, but heaven is a concept and heaven is a ideal, right? If you're not striving for heaven, you're walking to hell. Well, who wants to walk to hell? I mean, people will be like, oh yeah, I'll run the place. There's, people say stuff like that, but you don't understand what it could be and how it could happen to you.
Do you think heaven and hell exist here on earth?
I think people put themselves where they want to be. Yeah. I don't.
But do you think they at least conceptually exist on earth?
No. I 100% know that they are 100% metaphysical. Yeah.
Do you
absolutely
refresh my memory on your thoughts of the afterlife?
My thoughts
do you think that we have one chance here on earth?
I could start to see that you were like, oh, John, you're getting really deep with your commentary, and now you're taking it to the next level. All right,
okay,
let's go.
We can go back out.
No, it's a good question. So my background is as a remote viewer in this sense, as a remote viewer, as a meditator, as a practitioner of understanding metaphysics for the last, since mid 1996, and we're almost to 2024, so that's
Holy moly, almost 30 years.
That's a good long time, right?
Yeah.
So, and not, I'm not into anything dark. I'm not into anything. I'm into trying to understand, because let's say Jesus was a real person, and let's say that he commanded demons, healed the sick, cast out demons, this kind of thing, raised the dead. Those stories, let's say he turned water into wine. Let's say he created fish and loaves from few into many. He had a command of the metaphysical, right? He had a command of, or at least
he had a command of the physical.
A command of quantum atomic energy, right? Like if he took a loaf of bread and he could create 100 loaves, he was commanding metaphysical energy, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you could admire anything in life, you could admire your grandfather, you could admire your father, you could admire the founding fathers, you could admire people who gave their lives for things they believed in. But if you're truly on a quest to strive for heaven or to understand the greatest history, stories ever told, however you want to look, metaphor, metaphysics, you know, you know, lore of lands, you know, that type of stuff, then you find, I personally have found ways to verify, to test, to have things, you know, to learn about things, to be able to observe and to know, and not believe. I'm not a believer, I'm a knower. And so I've had interactions that have shown me and proved to me that I am not a believer, I'm a knower. I know these things happen. And now I wasn't there when the loaves and the fish were multiplied. But as a remote viewer, you can go there. You can, you know, witness what has happened, and you can see, sense, feel, smell, taste, touch, you know, that kind of thing, what has happened. So, you know, so my beliefs are not beliefs. You know, I'm very, like, I'm sitting on a chair right now. You know, that's how solid I am in my knowledge. And that's,
Well, it might be akin to, okay, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, you know, they thought the world was flat at that time, didn't they? I mean, some people still
the world
do.
is flat.
Yeah. But, you know, they went anyways, and some people came back. And so to some people, when they came back, might have been like, I can hardly believe that, you know, because it's so outside their paradigm. You know, that was the frontier. Our frontier at this point is the metaphysical realm, right?
Well, here's would be my question, and I'm neither a globalist or a flat earther. I'm a round earth or flat earth kind of person because I haven't gone after it. But I've never been to space. I've never gazed upon the round earth. I've never been, I have been in a plane, and as far as I can see, you know, and when you're up really high, it gives you a perspective, right? But I haven't flown around the earth, you know, and I haven't been to many countries, and so I'm not a knower in that sense. That's how practical I am about my knowledge, right? I don't open a book and believe it, because a book was written by a person, and that person could be wanting to manipulate me.
Why do you believe what you have remote viewed?
Because it's a subjective experience.
Well, wouldn't that make it only
If you walk-
believable to you?
That's all that matters.
Okay.
I'm not trying to convince anybody.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I teach people how to remote view, and then they get to do what they do, and then they go, holy crap. You know,
So-
a lot of them will say,
What-
oh my goodness, I didn't know this.
What is it in your experience specifically that proves it to you?
So the protocol is you have to learn just like a child learns, right? You have to learn what hot and cold is. You have to learn what high and low is. You have to learn what wet and dry is. You have to learn all these things, right? Once you learn them, you know them, right? I mean, it's 17 degrees here, 20 degrees right now. If you walked outside, you would tell me it's cold out. You might even be able to guess the temperature within plus or minus a degree, because you are used to cold weather because you live in Minnesota, right? Now, people from California, they would say it's freezing, and you.
Well, Siri says, "Brr, it's cold."
Yeah,
Or
I
she
mean,
used to.
if it was, let's say it was 38 degrees outside, and somebody flew in from California, and they walked outside, and they said, "Oh my God, it's freezing," and
Yeah.
you would be like, "No, it's
Not
30, it's
technically.
38. It's not freezing, not
You're
yet."
like, "That's my wife."
Well, I would say that too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because we know, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you went to the desert, you would say, "Oh my God, I'm going to melt," you know, and they'd be like, "No, you'll be fine. You just need some water. Here, put on a hat."
Yeah.
You know.
And like put on long sleeves. They're like, "I'm hot. Why did I put on long sleeves?" No, trust me.
And
you gotta-
once you know, we went to Colombia. We went on the most dangerous road in the world, and because it was collapsing the day before, and it was collapsing the week after we left. And,
mudslides.
yeah, and so, but now, right here you are sitting here, but you just
I
had
made it.
You just had an experience like something happened. Oh my God.
It really was. Like, technically the most dangerous road.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so you have experience, you know, right? So if somebody says, oh, we were on a road, we went up Pikes Peak and it's got to be the most dangerous road in the world. And
I'd be like, psh,
you're like, "Tch, I went up Pikes Peak on the back of a motorcycle, you know?
which I'd probably rather do than a car even. I mean, you could, if you had a little
You can
dicey
jump off.
situation, yeah. So maybe a good comparison would be like, so I speak other languages.
No. So we'll go back to what I was saying. So I have done thousands of remote viewing sessions and experienced and validated and verified my understanding, my skill level, my ability, capabilities. And so if let's say I remote view the Taj Mahal, and I'm like, oh, this is a big marble palace with these 4 spires on each side, and marble floors, and the colors are white, and there's gold domes, and there's this, and there's that. And you look at that session and you go, oh my goodness, you literally were at the Taj Mahal.
Yeah, and you had wife or, something, or get it, because the guy made it for his wife.
Oh yeah, so oh, yeah, I got the backstory.
Yeah.
And then I got that there are 20 floors below this building, and there's scientific labs, and there's containment facilities, and there's nuclear power or whatever, right? And you would have to think to yourself, well,
Yeah.
all this other data is correct, I guess. There's 24 floors below the Taj Mahal, and there's all this stuff. And then if somebody gave me a target, you don't know what the targets are, and the target was a structure on the moon and what's in it. And I came back with, there is a tall spire made of glass, and then there is all these vehicles inside, and and you'd look at the Taj Mahal and the building on the moon, and you'd go, what do you do? I mean, how do you, the one on the moon is not verifiable, right? However, they have gone to, government institutions have gone to remote viewers for speculative things and then found out years later that they were correct. So things off planet, things underground bases, things, which person was involved in this, right? And then find out later that was true. So, and it's like anything else. It's a skill. Everybody can do it, but it's a skill. And you need to practice. You need to be dedicated to it. And you need to work on it. And you need to continue as you're learning. You need to apply yourself. You need to make time for, it's like anything else, right?
Well, for some other comparisons, I was going to use a language one, but I'm going to use something that everybody uses. It's like when you learn math formulas. And at first you're learning it and you're like, wow, that's interesting. And then you're like, whoa, I got the answer. And you can prove it, right?
Right.
Or it's like recipes, cooking in the kitchen. You follow a recipe and maybe you've had it before too, because this is kind of the verifying your early remote viewing experience. You have something that you can verify.
Yep.
Maybe, my mother-in-law gives me a family recipe. I've had it many times at her place, and then I get the recipe and I'm like, whoa, it turned out, yay. Yeah. And the same thing with remote viewing. You follow the protocols, you keep going through it, you verify, and at a certain point, you just are confident you have the answer. Yeah. I mean, there's certain math problems we don't even have to think about these days. We know that 3 times 4 is 12, and that 12 divided by 4 is 3. We just know those.
And I don't mean to be flippant about anything. At the high levels, you would have a team of remote viewers. You would break it, the sessions would all be broken down. You would do multiple sessions on the same target, and then the data would all be broken down and looked at. And, because governments have made decisions on tactical targets, on strategic targets with remote viewers.
Well, that leads my next question though, is what happened when individual remote viewers had, because you're saying that for you, it was a subjective experience. I think that implies that for each remote viewer, it's subjective. So what would they do if there was seemingly conflicting information when they came together as teams?
The reviewers would, if it's life and death, they may throw it out. They may just go, there's too much mismatch here, too much misalignment, the percentages of accuracy look like they're off, or they would maybe investigate there was something causing some issues. They would look at the viewers, state of mind when they went in. They would look at I mean, it's all very, at those levels, it's all very controlled. It's very, very controlled, very, very structured, very, there's protocols for protocols.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, just like the spying agencies, they don't just go off of data brought in by one person unless it's physical data,
Yeah.
right? They go off of team data because if it's life and death, it's uber critical.
And then people would have specialties, right? Like you had more like mechanics and certain specialties.
Different people are good at different things. Yeah. I grew up as a mechanic, as a race mechanic, as a tool maker, machinist, tool maker, designer. And so, yeah, the mechanical stuff was very easy for me. Systems, energy flows, stuff like that.
Let's get back to then.
Which probably lended to my spatial capabilities, that's 25 feet underground, that's 50 feet to the south, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas people, a lot of people would be like, it's off to my right. Mm-hmm. my orientation capabilities, number capability, name capabilities, mechanical capabilities were very good.
Was it also helpful that even because you're not there physically, but did you have an easier time than orienting yourself in the situation?
Yeah, I came into a few targets upside down in the beginning, but yeah, I realized right away because a lot of people would say, I don't know what I'm looking at if they're upside down or they're oriented different. If you come into a target and you come in and you're oriented this way and you're looking up like that,
yeah.
You're this way or backwards, I can't see anything.
Yeah.
It takes time. It's like anything else. It's like hitting a baseball. It's like riding a skateboard. It's like,
Well, I was even thinking of a motocross. They're jumping through the air, right? And maybe doing, what is it called? When you
tail whip or
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you learn to orient your body, or martial arts especially.
Which is something I did. Yeah, I'm a martial artist, motocross racer, that kind of thing. Yeah, so my physical, my gyroscope is pretty good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what it seems to translate. So getting back to the afterlife.
Like an artist, an artist as a remote viewer generally can draw the picture really good. Mm-hmm. I've drawn some pretty good pictures. I've drawn some things that were at the target really well. I've drawn systems really well. But if it's a landscape, or if it's a couple people standing here and then there's a structure there, and those things for me won't have a ton of detail. But a right angle, a box for a structure, generally you don't need. It's like they want to verify that you got the person standing next to the building. As a test, maybe, or who is that person? I could get who the person is a lot easier than I could get, they're wearing a blue suit and a tie. I could get that too, but it was easier for me to be like, that's Bill Johnson. Bill Johnson, he's part of this group, he works for this organization, he's, that type of stuff was easy.
So your experiences convinced you that those metaphysical experiences with Jesus did happen?
I haven't been to all the Jesus targets. I've been to many biblical targets, and they all happened. What was said, they were different. They were what I got was the energy of the time, the event. I got the energy. So Moses parting the Red Sea. It happened. It literally happened. He was holding a staff or a rod that had something emanating from it. Whether that's God energy, I don't know. That's what I said when I did the target. I said, this is God. This is a God target, because whatever that energy is, maybe it's atomic energy, maybe it's a field energy, some type of field energy, that I got multiple times throughout the stories in the Bible.
How do you know the difference between something that actually happened and something that people believe in so much that it exists
Well, if you
as a
remote
thought.
view, okay, so we remote view Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and that kind of stuff. And
Okay.
I ended up at a candy factory for the Easter Bunny. And I was like, I could smell chocolate, and I was like, there's all sorts of colored candies and this type of stuff. And and I drew the assembly lines, and I was like, there's all these assembly lines going. But the target felt kind of amorphous to me, kind of like, I can't really pin down why I'm here.
Well, bunnies are fluffy, John.
Honey tail. I couldn't pin down why I was there, but I got the systems, so I'm like, there's manufacturing going on. There's conveyor belts, there's tanks full of fluids and vats and different things like that, and hoses and lines and pumps and a lot of noise, right? And then I smelled chocolate, and I'm like, oh, I'm at a candy factory. And then, my session was the funniest session. That was an initial training, right? Because they want to train you right away on what's real and what's not.
So what were other people getting?
Oh, geez.
Do you remember?
That was almost 30 years ago. I'm not.
Well, obviously yours was the most memorable. How about Santa Claus then and the Tooth Fairy? What?
Santa Claus was cold. It was there was red and white. There was a lot of colors. There was a concept of giving. There was a concept of families. And it was all, again, it was just kind of like you couldn't grasp it. You couldn't.
Because it was with
There was
Santa
no
Claus,
location for Santa. There was no.
Santa was actually a Saint Nick.
Santa was an energy. It was more broad. It was across everybody that was doing it. So when you went into the target, it was like, no, okay, I'm going where, what am I doing? Okay. And then you get over to your, you get through your columns, you get to your emotional columns, and it's like happiness and joy and giving and fun and, and gifts. I remember writing down gifts and, that kind of stuff. And it was like, okay.
So is this kind of like how language evolves? We started out the podcast talking about ride or die and how that actually had a meaning. And Santa Claus was actually based on Saint Nicholas, a saint, a man who would give gifts to children. I think it was some.
Well, the funny thing is.
So, but let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
The story evolved.
Okay.
Right, and so it's no longer what it originally was, and so what you picked up on was whichever energy was most believed in, most
the strongest.
Yeah. And
I don't remember what the target was. It could have been origin of Santa Claus / current time. It could have been, I don't remember what the target was.
So then what was the Tooth Fairy?
I didn't do the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, I thought you said you did the Tooth Fairy. Was there another?
I don't think I did the Tooth Fairy.
Okay. Because those would be interesting comparisons, right? It's kind of like.
No, the interesting comparison was between the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, right?
Okay.
Both holidays of religions, right?
Yeah.
Christmas, Jesus being born.
Yeah, both.
And Easter, Jesus being resurrected.
Both traditions based on religion, but it had their own.
I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that. I got the modern day, what Easter is now, and it was a candy factory, people buying lots of stuff but I didn't get that Easter was a time of giving and joy. Easter was more dominated by the kids getting candy. Right. It was the theme was more like it's all about this candy. Right. The Christmas theme was.
But you were saying Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. Like that would be interesting to do is sessions on Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and Easter and Christmas.
True. Right? Yeah. But you would think, and this is why it's fun. You would think that I might have, and I don't remember what the target cues were. We could probably look them up. They were probably in my initial training. But the Santa thing was more prevalent, probably because it's a bigger holiday, right? Christmas is way bigger than Easter.
Yeah, they're Jewish people that celebrate Christmas.
That might be why.
Yep.
Go Jews. So it was just really interesting to me. Since you bring these up, it starts flooding my memory again of how strange it was to feel like the energy of Christmas, but to feel that Easter had no energy, or the Easter bunny did not have the relation to Easter like Santa Claus has the relation to Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of proves kind of what I was getting at or curious about too, is how do you know when you're plugging into the zeitgeist, right? The time ghost.
Yeah.
And how do you know when you're plugging into what actually existed and happened?
Yeah. So I got the zeitgeist of Santa Claus, but the Easter bunny had no zeitgeist because Santa Claus is a human character, right?
Yeah.
The Easter bunny is an animal with no link to what Easter actually means. Now, like you said, if I'd gone into Easter, the meaning of Easter for the church,
Yeah.
I could have ended up at the tomb as Jesus walked out, right?
Yeah.
Or I could have ended up in the tomb while he was being resurrected, which would be a phenomenal target, right? To be there while he was, and I don't know if you can be there, right? Because I've been booted out of targets too. I've been put somewhere else. When you go to a target and there's a being there that is more powerful than you, and generally there always is, but they don't want you there, they just pick you up like a child and put you somewhere else, and you're like, what just happened? It's like snapping your fingers, and me and you are talking, and you snap your fingers and you're in a movie theater, by yourself, and you're like, okay, I was just talking to my husband, what just happened?
Is there a difference between you, because you can remote view people from the past, whether, I know we've been speaking religiously here, but let's say you've done a number of JFK targets. Is there a distinction between when they were alive? Like, how does it feel between when they're alive and when they're not alive?
Yeah. So when they're not alive, they are alive in the metaphysical world, depending on what they're doing or where they're at. And there's a difference between viewing their spirit and viewing them in their current incarnation. So in the beginning of this, you asked, do we only have one time here? Do we only have, we may only have one time on earth, but we have thousands of lives wherever we choose to incarnate, right? So you can choose based on your level, right? It's like when you're really good at soccer in high school and you want to play center, or you want to play a defensive, a wingman or whatever, or goal, maybe you want to be the goal. I don't know what you can choose in soccer. I'm not a soccer guy. But
way to choose a sport.
Well, football you can't choose really, because it's based on size and and skill in that position. Soccer, everybody's just running.
Yeah.
And so they all look almost equally as good to me. I know there's people that stand out above the crowd, but soccer is more of an equal playing field, right? And so not as specialized. I mean, the goalie versus the center would be probably the most specialization in soccer that I understand. Sorry if anybody really loves soccer, and I'm having a problem.
You're basically saying you're a really talented athlete in a sport that you could play about any position you choose.
And then you can choose, yeah. So you can choose where you want to go based on your level, right? If you're a really good baseball player, you can't choose to be center on a soccer team, because if you're not good with your feet, right?
Yeah.
So let's say there's 10 planets or 10 lands or whatever you want to say, 10 worlds that you can incarnate to.
Kingdoms, that sounds
10
marvelous.
kingdoms. You could choose one of 10 kingdoms, right? And if you're not elf level, you can't go to the elf kingdom. And if you're gnome level, you can go to the gnome kingdom. Maybe you can go to the dwarf kingdom. Maybe you can go to the people kingdom, right? But you can't go to the elf kingdom, right? So it's, if you're a 9, you can go to everywhere other than 10. You could say, I want to go back to 1. I want to go to 5. I want to relearn that lesson from 7. But if you're a 10, you can go anywhere, or you can choose not to go because you made it to 10, right? And so that's a simplified way of saying it, and maybe in another podcast, we can go into this story about us and what we know.
Yeah. Well, so when you're remote viewing someone who's passed, can you connect with them if they're somewhere else?
Oh, if they're alive or dead? Yeah, but it depends on.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, but it depends on what they are or who they are. So let's say JFK, you brought up. Let's say Jesus, right?
Okay. Well, I was trying to get off the Jesus train.
Jesus was here as a human being.
Yeah.
Anywhere Jesus goes, you could connect with him because he's 10.
Okay.
He's level 10, right?
Okay.
So you come in, you want to talk to him, he shows up. So, matter of fact, okay? It's happened for me. And so because he's of the level of realization, right? And truly part of the Godhead, right?
Omnipotent.
God.
Yeah.
Jesus is God. God is God. Holy Spirit is God. It's the Godhead. And you know, if he decides to go somewhere else and do something, you know, he's going there to help people, right? He's going there to show true love and to show love for the humanity or whatever they are there, right? You know, and so you know, maybe there's a world of blobs, you know, the slime world, right? I don't know. You know, so
This Wally world.
yeah. So we incarnate until we get to that level. It's young people, think about it this way. Life is a video game. You need to get your tokens, you need to get your keys, you need to get your power-ups, you need to continue to the next level. And if you don't get better, more accurate, your aim doesn't get sharper, your focus doesn't get better, you don't achieve, right? And you're not doomed to come back. There are other places you can go to learn lessons, but I would say that there are principles and lessons that need to be learned to get to the point of realization. I would say some people probably have done it, have probably skipped some levels and go, oh, I just had this realization, and they, like an epiphany, they grab onto and they hold onto it. They don't just have an epiphany and then the next day they're going back to the bar and drinking and slutting around and blah, 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 you know, doing all this kind of stuff. They have a realization and they change everything in their life, right? And they have to change their friends. There's certain family they can't hang around. There's certain things they have to do, and they're going to be drugged down like a crab trying to get out of the bucket, right? How do you keep a crab in a bucket? You put another crab in the bucket, right? And they'll try and continually climb over each other to get up. And if one gets a hold on the edge of the bucket, he'll pull himself up, and the other crab will try and climb up its leg, and one crab can't pull two crabs, so they're stuck in the bucket.
Did you ever remote view any people or entities that were 8s or 9s?
Those are the ones that put you somewhere else. Those are the ones that go, you're not supposed to be here.
At what point do they tolerate you?
I think,
using this hypothetical scale.
well, this is really funny because I think they, if they, I've been places where they didn't know I was coming because we use certain techniques, and we can talk about that later, or that's something we can teach in the remote viewing training, but
So wait a minute, you're a metaphysical ninja? Is that what you're
no,
saying?
no. Well, no. Deal maker.
Okay.
Metaphysical
Well,
negotiator.
you said they didn't know you were coming.
Oh, they didn't know because we had help. So, right. So your buddy's holding the rope, you're a ninja climbing down the wall, right?
See, that's what
You
I'm
couldn't
saying.
get there by yourself, but
Yeah.
so you get there and then they realize you're there and then they move you because they don't want you to see what they're doing, right? But I think
It's kind
sometimes,
of like kids coming into the adults' room, like, no, you got to leave. You know, you're not ready for this.
oh, mommy and daddy were just kissing, we're just touching,
Snuggling.
we're playing tic-tac-toe on mommy's tummy. You know, yeah. So we are infinitely capable. We're not allowed in certain levels. There are certain levels that can stop other lower levels, right? You can get into certain places with help, but when you come up on someone who didn't know that you could or were doing what you're doing, and you shock them and they are happy about it, they then watch you. They then, and then you start getting a little bothered and you start getting woken up in the middle of the night and you're, because there is no, we're gonna care about your sleep and we're gonna care about your time and that kind of stuff. There's just, hey, you could do this if you did that. If you did this, you could do that. And it's like a really excited coach
Yeah, that's
that
what
has a
somebody-
talented student and they work them so hard they pop their Achilles, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, well you could have. So
Was there anything, when you got into remote viewing, was there anything that like significantly changed? Like you did a 180 in life because of what you subjectively experienced?
yeah, meditation was big. I learned how to meditate. I learned transcendental meditation.
But I mean,
Which-
is there a belief or is there a behavior that you're like, I gotta change that? Or it just changed as a result?
I had certain realizations before I went to remote viewing about things that I did or didn't want to do in life. And I had an experience where I picked up a hitchhiker and turned out to be an angel and might have been my guardian angel. He didn't say that, but you could think about him as a psychic, right? Like he knew everything about me. He was telling me things that I hadn't told anybody. He was saying things that nobody knew about me that I was going to do, things that I was going to do. Not all of them were productive and or kind. And that changed my life. That was before I went to remote viewing. So I didn't gain, that was like a slap to the face. That was like that was like when you see a guy say, come on, dude, fight me, and then, the guy pushes you with one finger and you fall on the ground and you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to fight this guy, so it was like a slap to the face. It's like the Buddhist monk sitting meditating in the mountains and the student comes up and says, Master, I need to know what is the sound of one hand clapping, and the monk slaps him across the face. And he's like, oh, thank you, Master, thank you. But I need to know what is the sound of one hand clapping, and he slaps him in the face, and the guy doesn't get it, right? That was happening in my life. I was getting slapped, and nobody realizes that slap is the sound of one hand clapping. It's a clapping on your face, but you don't realize it. You don't think about it that way. It's like, oh, he slapped me. Okay, I'm getting something from him, right? I kept getting slapped. And when the guy's name was Raymond, and Ray Man, when he got in my vehicle, he drank 2 liters of water, because that's what I had with me. I gave him water because he looked completely dehydrated. He drank 2 liters of water nonstop. And then he talked to me for an hour, nonstop. And I was, I don't even remember, I was going up to train martial arts. I don't even remember the class that I trained. I don't remember anything almost until I got home. Like the whole rest of the day driving home, I don't remember driving home. I don't remember anything.
Acted like you'd seen a ghost.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, that's the Raymond story.
So there's a document out there somewhere about you and remote viewing, is there?
Yeah, it's not so much about me as it is about the remote viewing community at the time. John Grenwald of the Black Vault did a FOIA request of the NSA on remote viewing. And so there's a document on the blackvault.com. I believe it's the blackvault.com, or no, it's just blackvault.com, I think. And yeah, you could just type in my name or remote viewing and you'd find the document, and it outlines some people, it outlines actually a lot of the greats. And somehow my name made it into the document. So evidently the NSA was researching remote viewing and ended up researching my name, or the FBI. I don't know who commissioned the report, but yeah. And it outlines the things that I did. I was known for remote viewing numbers. I was known for particularly the lottery. I was known for remote viewing missing cases, and I was also known for teaching kids how to remote view, because I think every human should learn how to remote view when they're young.
Why?
Well, we'd have a better world. We'd have a world of people that are more realized and understand things at a deeper level and are able to look at things deeper and be more selfless, because you realize you're connected. I mean, if you can see anything in the universe, or you can see anybody or any, whatever you want to look at, you realize that everything is connected. We are literally all one thing.
I think you're right in that sense. It's kind of like, since I was an exchange student in Brazil, I wish that was feasible for everybody to travel, even for a couple weeks or month. You get such a different perspective, and unfortunately that is not possible for everybody, but everybody could learn to remote view. How did it, so if we're all, see, this is a conundrum I find also in reading the Bible, and just, trying to understand this, I think relates also in this realm. So we're all connected. Jesus teaches to love thy neighbor, right? And it's basic, just universally love, right? And that's so hard when you encounter evil, like true evil. And I did a podcast with one of our teachers at the Institute, and she's written a book about sexual trauma and how herbs helped her through the process. And I mentioned that, until I really experienced evil, I thought, forgiving, no problem. My girlfriend who just talked behind my back and spread rumors, I forgive her, But that's not evil. I mean, depending on what they say, maybe, but until I truly experienced evil, then it was like, God, how do I do this? And so similarly, how do you think that having that experience of remote viewing would, or maybe what did you learn about how to deal with evil? Because when you're in the spiritual realm, you don't have like the physical boundaries as well. I guess I'm diving pretty deep here.
Well, everybody needs to listen to Yoda, because all evil comes from pain, right? And pain leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering, and suffering leads to the dark side, right? So, and I don't know that I have all that in order, but yeah, there's a lot of truth to the kind of like the declination into, the darkness of
Right.
experience, and we all are having those experiences. We deal with them differently based on our situation, our position, every guy has had his heart ripped out, every girl has had her heart broken, and maybe not everybody, but the better we can do generation over generation, which is why we got to watch out for the singularity of deprivation, which is what's going on right now, where it's all about just tearing everything down. It's about making men and women fight, making whites and blacks fight, making, Northerners and Southerners fight, North America, South America, all these things, Russia versus America. It's about keeping an enemy in somebody's face and keeping them scared, because fear, right? Yoda again. Yeah. Fear leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, suffering leads to, blah, 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 right? Yoda, Yoda, Yoda. So there's a lot of truth in that kind of stuff. And ultimately it all comes from ancient teachings, right? That's why the 10 Commandments, right? If you covet something and you can't have it, you feel you had a loss. And if you kill somebody, there's a loss, and then you have to hide, and then now you become somebody that's not forthright and out, and you can't have your heart out there. It's just so many things. So doing things the right way, not being selfish, not pulling yourself down, right? Because when you are giving, there's a different energy. When you are helpful, there's a different energy. When you are loving, there's a different energy. And as soon as you're afraid and you're selfish and you pull from other people instead of giving or helping, then yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of things that should be taught. A lot of ways things should be done, and I think a lot of people have good intentions in the world. This is why they say, be careful of this, be afraid of that, But walking in fear attracts negativity, right? So we talk about it often. We have to be aware of what's going on, but we don't want to be afraid per se. And it's hard not to, if there's women are being mugged in our town, I'm not going to want you to go into town, right? Because I'm going to be like, geez, women are being mugged, and so then I feel like I have to go with you, or we have to arm you, and then you think, well, now what am I going to do? Am I going to shoot somebody or stab them, or and it just starts to devolve, and it's a very simple process, just like it's a simple process going the other direction. Somebody says, hey, I did something. Somebody says, how'd you do that? And they say, well, let me show you. And now we're going in the right direction, teaching somebody how to fish, teach them how to make a fishing pole instead of just giving them a fish or charging them to buy a fish from you, whatever it is, right? Simple, kind of disjointed concepts, but, at some point they all fit together.
Lately, I have come to my own realization that coincides with what you've said for years based upon remote viewing, which is in remote viewing, you can technically, in a way, predict the future, but it'll often change. And what I have come to in my own studies, particularly contemplating the Bible and like contemplating the words, not necessarily even doing a specific study, because I used to do a fair amount of work in the astrology realm. And what I realized as I shifted from studying astrology to studying the Bible is I wondered for a while, am I doing something wrong, in studying astrology? And I think here's where I'm at currently, and you can tell me what you think based upon remote viewing point of view, because I think they provide an interesting contrast.
Okay.
And that is, in the Bible, it talks about that to not do sorcery, to not to worship idols, and there are many words that are attached, but I'll just use those two. So sorcery being, kind of like magic, seeing into the future. Idols can be even just like figurines of maybe the Greek gods or various kinds of gods, right? But they could also be the planets. They are archetypes and energies. And what I think is challenging, it's like evil is true. It exists. And I think astrology is true and exists, but those are things that you have to be very discerning in this life. You have to, and I think that's what the Bible teaches us, how to be discerning with contemplation, though. It sometimes lays it out pretty plainly, but sometimes you're like, what does that mean? And you have to contemplate it. And I think that's the beauty of it also, because there's, meditate upon the word, right? And I think that's what it's what helps you to embody it. And so what I came to is that I think astrology is helpful, just like psychology or many forms of self-study are helpful in learning about yourself, so that hopefully you don't repeat bad patterns or things that you can learn from. But they're not predictive. It's not meant to be used predictively. And if you try, it's like you're always going to be off. It's never going to be exact.
Okay, let's talk about astrology for a second.
But
go ahead.
for a moment,
Okay.
is when I was trying to use it more predictively, I was always very anxious. And I was always trying to aim here and aim there.
Yeah.
And part of the process for me coming to the Bible was I had a huge lesson in life about trust, which is very closely related to faith. And I was putting my trust and faith in these idols, in these energies. Whereas if I looked back, you could prove that astrology, oh my God, is totally real. But I think that we're engineered. It's like this is some kind of energetic programming for us. I'm much more at peace now that I might use astrology kind of like in the hindsight, like, wow, that was kind of funky. What was going on? Kind of like you might assess a health condition, like I was sick last week. Well, I did drain myself doing this. I did not eat well. Okay, I'm not going to do that again, right? And I think when we are living wholesomely, we will get sick, quote, less often. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I think utilizing astrology, I think there's a way to do it, in the sense of you want to see, because you know where the planets are going to be, and the general energies that are going to come with those positions. If all the planets line up, there's a great magnetism, there's a great electrocution. Electrification. There's energies, right?
Yeah, energy fields that combine.
Well, there's electricity and there's magnetism. And so you have as the Bible teaches.
Maybe electric fields then.
Well, think about, I'm going to get there. As above, so below, right? Now, our science has taught us, and let's think of the laws of attraction, right? If you have a neuron and there's a small electric energy going over it, and there's little nodes along the way, which let's say those nodes are your thoughts, right? There's a thought point here, there's a thought point here, there's a thought point here. And when those things line up, you have an idea, you have a plan, you have a goal, you have an outcome in mind, right? So you got 4 little nodes there, right? And the electricity is going between them, zip, 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 zip. You create a magnetic field because electricity is running along that wire. And we know that because we can do that scientific test on the table and create electricity or create magnetism with electricity on a wire. It will attract, right? So when the planets line up, think of those as nodes or thoughts or cells along the way, right? And the energy is going through them. They're going to create a field. They're going to create a draw. That's like the God brain, right? That's like the big brain of the universe, right? These things are moving around, and in our brain, our thoughts are moving around, right? So as these things line up, they create energies. As they come close together, right? You have a thought about, oh, I should work out, and you pull up your jeans, you're like, oh, they're a little tight, I should work out. So you go work out, right? This is an energy that was created. You notice something, and your thought creates and manifests reality. So these energies can manifest many realities, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're in the ocean and you see a wave coming and you want to surf and you got your surfboard, you get in front of the wave, you start paddling furiously as fast and hard as you can. Once your momentum is up enough, you stand up on the board, and now you're just riding the wave, right? And so these energies that are created, whether it's in our mind or somewhere else in our body or in space with the planets, the mind of God, right? We can ride those waves. There's huge energy coming in March. You'll hear astrologists say this, and watch out because it could be this. Well, I ignore everything they say other than the huge energy is coming in. And I go, all right, I'm going to get on this wave, right? And I'm going to utilize this energy to my benefit. What's coming up in my life? What am I doing? What could I make happen? How are things working? And in the last several years, a lot of the energies have been very negative in our society because of the way mankind controls society. Humankind controls society. Governments control society, right? And so they're doing the same thing. They're riding the waves. They're saying this energy can amplify what we're doing, right? We're going to talk over a speaker and we're going to tell everybody this is what's happening, and they're utilizing these waves also because you can watch the cycles of what they tell you and what they do in government, and you see them coming at the times of these big celestial events, right? And so they're utilizing the energy too. And so I don't see any problem with utilizing the energy, just like you're surfing. You go out and surf, God is not going, oh, you're worshiping that wave, you know, and somebody might be like, man, that was a religious experience, dude. You know, I caught a wave. It was like I was riding with the Holy Spirit. You know, they don't, God's not going to be like, oh, you used a wave to surf. Okay, you idol worshiper, your idolatry is showing, you know, you fell out of your shorts. You know, that's not going to happen. But if you say, I am now a Wavonian. I worship the wave. You know, the wave is my God, and you know, then that's idolatry.
There's a fine line.
Yeah, you can't be. Well, most astrologers are like this is the end all be all. This is how everything happens. But they're a level 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. They don't see beyond. They're not thinking beyond. They're thinking, I've figured it out. Everybody that is in a metaphysical study wants to figure it out. And people get to a point where they can't think beyond, because we know there's different levels of intelligence, right? I mean, you have 6 kids in your family and they're all different ranges of intelligence, even though they're got the same parents, ate the same food, raised by the same people, they're all different, right? And one might be a brilliant attorney and one is a super mechanic, you know, and doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but they're only thinking about whatever it is they're there to think about, right? And it's different levels. One might make $100 million and the other one only makes $100,000, you know, and I'm not saying which one is which either, but we can go into these fields and study them and learn from them and try to understand, and then say, if God put the planets in place and the planets are creating energies, God put the planets in place to create energies that will help us or hurt us or affect us or so that we can use it, right? So I'm not afraid of it at all. Yeah, I watched you go through your cycle. You know, you were like, I'm into astrology, da da da, and then you were like, oh my gosh, I'm worshiping astrology. I got to get out of it, and then you shut it off.
Well,
you just got out of it 100% for I forget how long, 6 months, a year, whatever it was.
Well, just not to the degree that I was. And I think like I brought up modern medicine.
And then you
I think
step back into it. You step back into it with a control. And the control was, I have to stop riding these cycles and being scared and happy and scared and happy and scared and happy. That's where you went through your 40 days in faith, and you're like, okay, I got to have faith that everything is happening the way it's supposed to, and I can build a bigger boat. I can put my sail up in the wind. God makes the wind blow, but you're not going sailing unless you put your boat in the water, right? And so I can put my boat in the water, but I need to do it in a timely fashion. I need to do it on a windy day. Otherwise, I'm going to be in a rowboat, you know, if I'm get in there on a windy day. And then I also need to be aware of the size of my boat. If the swells are 8 feet and I've got a 16-foot sailboat, I better not put my boat in the water. Right. And that's where most of the people in the Western world make their mistakes. They think that they can put their boat, they want to put their boat in when the opportunity is the biggest, right? Look at that. The wind is blowing 100 miles an hour. The swells are 12 feet. I'll get across this ocean or this lake or whatever it is in 2 minutes, right? 100 miles an hour. I'll get across it's only 20 miles across this lake. I'll get over there in 14 seconds, right? And then the first wave that hits capsizes them, and then they can't get out of the water and they drown. And then they blame God, right? Oh, yeah, well, if there was a God, he would make that happen. You know, he didn't make that happen. He made the wind blow. He created the water. He created the wind. And you were the fool that decided to ride your rubber ducky in a gale force wind, you know?
So can I give us a variation on your explanation of the planetary energies? So I think the easier way to see it is the planets. So we have a heliocentric model, where the sun is in the center. Do we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the different planets in their rings. Now, this is just considering our universe, right, or our galaxy.
Yep.
And so imagine each planet is like a filter, a color filter, like you know, one's pink, one's green, one's yellow. And from the outside, you have if imagine though the Earth is the center point, and these energies are beaming down on us, and there's some kind of light source, just doing a hypothetical here, and depending on how the planets are aligned around us, that's how the light, the filters, each one has their own color, is shining down on us, right? Sometimes it's a blue light, sometimes it's purple because the blue and the red are combined. We know this also by the pull of the moon, right? The gravitational force of the moon is so effective that it actually creates tides, right? And some people can even sense, or people who work in the ER, for example, or in the neonatal or birthing units, are like, wow, there's a lot of babies on the full moon, you know, people are coming out of the woodwork on the full moon. And so I think there's hardly any denying just that one example.
Yeah.
Or just how you feel. We naturally go to sleep. Most people naturally go to sleep when the sun descends, right, and goes the other side of the, if you're
Well, on a full moon, when the moon appears very close, generally I'm awake
right,
all night and I'm not tired the next day.
Yeah, so like a super moon, which
Yeah.
it appears that the moon is closer. It actually is closer, and it appears much bigger. People
It would
are more
have to be
active.
unless they adjust the dome, the lens we're
Right.
looking through. Yeah.
So using that analogy of the color filters, right? And you're going to feel different, you know, just like when the sun comes up and you're like, you naturally awaken. Most people are on that cycle. And so there's a practical application. And so what I'm getting at is, I think these energies really do exist. But the question is, if we're using this light filter model, what is the light? What is the originating energy that is emanating through the planets? You know, are they self-generating, or is it, where are they getting their energy from? Just something to contemplate. And so what the process that I went through is that I was studying astrology and processing things through my mind. And so I would have seen an alignment. I'm like, oh, it's going to be brown. It's going to be shitey here in the near future. And it's easy to be fearful, even because even some good energy planets, quote, can have a negative effect, because there is such thing as too much of a good thing. And then even looking back, so astrology, you learn astrology primarily by looking back in history, and there's a lot of truth. You can see the clear correlations. And I saw, for example, in your chart, at the time that we met astrologically would have been a time to get rid of, not find a significant other. But actually it was when you were getting rid of a business partner. It's kind of like you had a revolving door. One went out, one went in, you know? And so that's where, especially, I could see a really experienced astrologer who also has some psychic ability could see those things. They do see that kind of thing. Like, well, this is not a good time to find a mate, but maybe someone will go out of your life and then someone will come in, given what was your time of life. But then comparing our charts, I had the opposite signal where someone would come in.
I think the fortune telling aspect of it is the problem.
I want to get to that. That's
Okay.
where ultimately I started this out on predicting.
Okay.
Okay. So I think the problem with this is that I was using my mind to try to figure out these things. And I don't think I think that's, we are meant to get to a spiritual level somehow.
You have to sense through your spirit.
I think God amazingly put multiple ways to reach spirituality. Maybe not the 10, maybe there's only one way to get to level 10, but you can get to higher levels nonetheless in, let's say, Buddhism, for example, or, you know, even just meditating. I don't know. I believe in a certain way, but I know that once I started taking it out of my mind and making a mental practice, and I took it into trust and faith, that my life changed for the way better that I could not get from books and such before. And I think one more thing before, because it is the predicting that I wanted to get back around to, because it essentially there's an alignment between what it says in the Bible and what you've experienced in remote viewing as far as predicting. What I've learned since and experienced since is I'll still look at astrology but with a lighter eye, not analyzing to the degree, but listening to God first and going, what is this saying to me? So for example, I'm still experimenting. I'm seeing. Now, I don't use it predictively. I'm like, God, communicate me this way. I'm really open to the various ways I can be communicated to. But I think what happens is, what is happening is I'm going into a spiritual connection rather than an analytical mind connection and trying to figure it out. You're not going to figure out what God's plan is or be able to even work with God if it's just through your mind. Go.
Ask for guidance on that. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Just ask for guidance. Know where you are, know where you want to go, ask for guidance, and then be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Because
it's got to be within.
You will be given, and to be honest with you, you're my wife, and you may be told, this is going to sound very arrogant to people that don't understand this, but you may be told, follow John. You may be told, stay within the bounds of your marriage. You may be told, be the helpmate. You may be told these things.
I have been told those things, not outrightly, like I heard God speaking in one ear. It was life lessons. It was light being shown on different situations, and just going like, it was mostly softening me instead of, again, my mind going, you should do that. That's not right. He's not doing that right. And just going, my lesson, and this was a huge lesson, was trust. I'm going to trust God, and I'm going to trust God that the man I chose and love is going to have the guidance that we need. And I can see your body, that's why I'm saying it was so life altering. Like, it really convinced me that, because I felt better, and I think, and it's not like feeling better, like when you have I'll speak for myself, when I have a glass of wine, like, yeah, I feel better, it's the feel better after a good workout. Like, you felt like you did the right thing. You did something good.
Yeah. No, I am not going to go into detail, but I may be told you are where you're supposed to be. When you ask for guidance, you have to accept what you're told, and I'll be honest, it's almost instantaneous. It's almost like it comes before you are done saying, what should I do in this situation? It may be an internal knowing. There may be an external component to it, but you have to decide, if I'm going to ask, am I going to accept the answer? Am I going to argue with the answer and push a different direction? Am I going to listen like the waves coming in from the planets, right? Okay, that was a statement. I mean, we've been in a situation for almost the last 4 years where it's not exactly what we thought we wanted, but it turned out to be perfect for everything that happened.
Yeah.
Me getting sick, my dad falling and breaking his hip, all the different things that have happened, the opportunity to be able to expand in 2020, where if we had been living a different lifestyle in a different place, doing different things, we would not have been able to do that. And technically, we may have had financial problems because of that could have been catastrophic, or we may have, I don't know, you are where you are because of the decisions you make, and you are where you are because you want to be there. And there's also, you are where you are because you're supposed to be there. And I don't look at it as a justification. Well, why don't I have $10 million in the bank? I don't even think that way. I think I'm where I'm at and I'm working towards where I'm going. And if I decide to change, then I'm going to change what I'm doing. And if I don't, then I'm going to be doing what I'm doing. It's just like being married. I could go somewhere, be sitting, let's say I go to the mall, I go to the Apple store, and they're like, oh, we don't open for another 5 minutes. So I go sit on a couch in the mall there, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, working on my phone or just kind of waiting. And a lady sits down next to me and says, I've seen you before and I want you to come with me, and I have a jet right now at the airport, and I have to make a decision, right? And go, well, hold on a minute. That's an opportunity. That's a thing. I mean, I turn them ladies down all the time.
Yeah,
But same thing could happen to you. And you got to decide, where am I at? What am I doing? What am I thinking? Why is this happening? Why does this opportunity that is, and it converted to business, that's fresh and new and looks great. Hey, John, come over here. We'll give you X number of dollars for that, and you can do this. And I have current clientele, I have a current situation. And they're like, if you just move your business to Texas and then da 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 da, right? And I have to go, well, hold on. I care for my parents right now. I got, you got to look at not every seemingly better opportunity is a better opportunity. It's a change. Mm-hmm. And it might spell disaster and you might be being tested. Mm-hmm. Are you truly going to stick to what you said and your commitments and your commitments to everything, all the way from God down to your wife, your kids, your everything, right? And is the opportunity greater after that if you do the right thing? That's what has to be very aware. And if we believe that there is powers moving and what the Bible would say, principalities and darkness and evil and these types of things, we may be tempted with thoughts that distract us. We may be tempted with opportunities that could destroy us. And that's part of overcoming, learning, growing. That's part of, even something as simple and as complex as the 10 Commandments. We don't know unless we're aware. And that's one of the things I've strived to do with everything from martial arts to remote viewing, to meditation, to prayer, is to be aware and to sense, to have that sense about me, to be able to see things coming and avoid them. I don't have to wait for the truck to hit me to realize it's going to kill me. I don't have standing on a highway and there's a semi truck coming. That's not when you trust God that you're not going to die. That's where you get out of your way and say, thank you for the senses and the capabilities and the awareness to get out of the way, because now I'm alive. God did save you in that situation because you were given your faculties, you were given your senses, you were given your awareness. And most people won't think of it that way. They'll be like, I did that, and it's, you've been around, we've been married for 24 years and you've been around me where things have happened that are virtually unexplainable. Things have happened with us that are virtually unexplainable, and opportunities and things that have saved us at certain points. And I don't think I did that. I'm like, how would you ever do that? How would you ever calculate all of the things that would have to come together for that thing to happen that just propelled me or us forward or gave us what we needed to get through that time? Or, and it's like, phew, holy cow.
Yeah, just one time, for example, we were driving in a snowstorm and we called the truck the train. It was a long double cab, extended cab, or double
diesel pickup, long box, extended cab. Yeah.
You go ahead and
the
tell
train.
Yeah, so we were on 494 and just south of Minneapolis. And
we were headed to Wisconsin, and it was icy and a little icy, a little slushy. And cars, we came to an area where the wind was blowing very well.
Oh, and you're going under bridges.
Yeah, and this area had froze a little bit more than the other areas, and cars started spinning out.
You might as well just like see a movie scene where the sound of the environment goes down and this music starts playing. Dun 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 dun. I mean,
Everybody was going 50 miles an hour at least.
At least, yeah.
And cars in front of us started spinning out because they would tap their brakes, and one wheel, you know, mechanically speaking, one wheel always locks up before, or the brakes touch before the other wheels, right? And so they would spin because that one wheel would stop because it was on ice, and it would cause the car to start to rotate. And you were like, oh, and I was like, hang on, we're going to be fine. And I sped up because I saw the timing of all the cars. And we went through, and I changed lanes a couple times, and I sped up, and we went through they were spinning out behind us, in front of us, alongside of us. And
incredible.
It was like a ballet. Yeah. And we just went right through all of them and kept going, and we're fine. And, you know, and we look in the rearview mirror, and everyone's still spinning out. New cars are spinning out, and it was just crazy.
Well, and then another situation, driving as well, close by. This was way back in the day when your first pickup.
No, it wasn't my first pickup. It was the first pickup of mine that you drove.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah, Z71 extended cab with a 350, and you were driving for some reason. I think I had injured my leg at martial arts. I think I was something. I was like really stiff or something. And I was like, yeah, you drive. I'm gonna relax.
So it was a very short on ramp onto the highway onto 62, basically.
No, 35W south.
35W
going to 62.
So at least two lanes, merging onto two lanes.
Yeah, there was 4 lanes. Yeah, total.
Yeah, and so I, of course, look over my shoulder, all clear, all good. Yeah. And by the time I'm merging, granted, now the merge, it was only like a half a block that you had to merge. Yeah. Speed up, a full block to speed up and merge, let's say. And by the time I'm merging, all of a sudden this small red sports car is on my side. Yeah. And we're on dry tar. Daylight. Okay, I grew up in the country. You grew up in the country on gravel roads, and you turned over and you saw the car, and you went to go back. Felt the body roll. And then you went to counter steer. Yeah. And I reached out, and the steering wheel had spokes, had 4 connections to the center. And I reached out and grabbed the steering wheel on center, straight, and held on. And you were pulling on it, and my arm was a steel I-beam. Yeah. It didn't move. And I guarantee you that there was a guardian angel on my arm, just holding my arm there, because I don't know how I was sitting normal and went like this. And if you had put all your strength and weight into it, it would have at least gone up a little bit. Yeah. But it was just, we would have obliterated that car. We would have rolled. I mean, potentially, yeah. Yeah, I mean, very likely. Very likely. Yeah. It was a tiny little convertible, and it would have been absolutely horrible. That was divine intervention. I believe so. Yeah. Completely, because the strength of my arm was insane. And yes, you do have, I've been in situations where I've had incredible strength because of the emergency of the situation, and our bodies can do that. But I was relaxed, stationary in my seat, and just grabbed it, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And we were fine. And then we pulled over, and I drove. Yeah, I was shaking, and Oh, funny. Yeah. Well, we're at $145. Wow, we didn't even get back to predicting. Real quick. So what did you learn in remote viewing about predicting? Oh, predict all you want, because you're going to make the future better. It's all predictions get changed, because I believe you use your soul for remote viewing. I believe that's what it is. Your soul is going different places, and you become very connected to your soul. And when you share the information, you're speaking to other souls, because the information came through your soul, and so it carries with it a vibration and energy. And so remote viewers around the world, predict all you want. That's fine. But why do you think I say predict all the catastrophes, because they'll never happen. Why do you think the default is that it makes things better? Because innately people don't want problems to happen.
And that's a whole nother podcast, why all these catastrophe movies and stuff like that. It's programming the subconscious. So it's the singularity of deprivation. It's a whole category of why they do what they do.
So you did an experiment at one point.
No, we're not going into more experiments.
Okay, well, stay tuned for next time, because there's cool stuff.
Yes.
But I think it's interesting that you say that
there are some things, I'll say this out loud, there are some things you don't want to share,
Okay.
even if you know them. This is not a casual topic.
Well, I think it's very interesting that you think that it will default to the better, because very few things that almost casually
Well, I
default for the
think we
better.
have the power to make biblical prophecy come true nowadays. I think with the technologies, with the energy technologies, with all these things, I think, and we have to be very careful what we think is biblical and what we think is potential man-made. I mean, if they set off a nuke under the ocean, you get a tidal wave, right? I mean, you get a tsunami. And so, I mean, that just a simple example, everybody knows about that.
Or even just a volcano that went off a couple of years ago under the ocean.
Well, I'm just saying, if you set off a nuke we have the technology.
Yes.
Volcanoes aren't our technology. They're nature. So could we make a volcano go off? Potentially with a nuke, right? With an atomic bomb or something like that. So yeah, with that technology, human beings have the capability to make it look like biblical prophecy is coming true. And we have to be careful of that. So with that,
All right.
bye-bye.
Gonna end it there then, huh, John? Leave us hanging.